Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Wild Portishead Live. We've not done one for a couple of months, have we, Chris?
No, we haven't.
No,
Sorry,
not
you
since.
caught me out. I hadn't realised you unmute. You'd muted me.
Uh, no, very good. Yeah, I think the last time we did one, we were in the midst of the general election, weren't we?
No, I can't hear you.
Chris is having Chris is having problems tonight with his phone.
There's a bit of an earthquake going on here in along the other end of Portishead. Sorry,
Yeah.
it's gone down again. Damn
All
it!
right. I'll
Hang
tell you
on.
what, you set yourself up, and I will go on to the first story, which will come back to you once are you stable now, Chris?
Yes, I can start
Yeah.
off with the first story if you like, because I'm basically going to hand it over to you
Right.
because I was originally invited to a meeting on Monday, which unfortunately I could not attend.
Hmm.
And it was all to do with what's become a very interesting topic on the Wild Portishead pages, let alone what seems to be every other page in the local area, and that is the fact that Kingston Seymour, EDF, the company running the Hinkley Point uh, nuclear power station extensions, are basically talking about taking the original area, of which you will describe perfectly in a moment, and
Hopefully, yeah.
turning it into salt marsh. But I couldn't go to the meeting, but you could. Jonathan, over to
I
you.
I did. I went to the meeting. Right. I'm just trying to call up the stats at how many people were actually at the meeting on Monday night. Oh goodness me, I had it up here, but shall we say there were a couple of hundred packed into the hall, and there are also people viewing online as well. So it was very, very well attended. Pretty, I think it's fair to say, unanimously against the plans, and we'll come to what this is all about essentially. But this was EDF's presentation, Kingston Seymour exploring the concept of new salt marsh habitat. Now, let's qualify that from the outset, Chris, because this isn't about creating salt marsh habitat for the good of wildlife. This is about creating salt marsh habitat to mitigate for the fact that EDF have pretty much been chased down the Severn estuary by people who have objected to other plans they've had closer to Hinkley Point. And I do believe it was Paulet Hams was the last place they wanted to do something like this, and they were shown the door. Now, essentially, why are EDF wanting to do this? This is because they have water cooling pipes that sit out 3 kilometres into the Severn estuary, and they use what is known as low velocity side intake heads. Now, they are fitted with what is called a fish return system, but it doesn't quite, I'm not going to say it doesn't quite do the job, but they do end up chewing up quite a lot of fish throughout the year. And I did have the sums written down here. It was, oh, goodness me, I've lost the page, Chris. I think it was something like about 4,000. I can't remember if it was 4,000 or 40,000 tons of fish every year get chewed up by the turbines. They tried to qualify that by saying that on average, a place like Brixham will land a couple of 100,000 tons of fish every month. But they were going to use an acoustic fish deterrent system, but it just didn't work, wasn't effective. It was maintenance heavy, so they have decided that
Can I stop you there
Chris.
because there's a bit of latest information on that.
Go on.
If people listening to this go to either Everything Else Clevedon Facebook page or the Kingston Seymour protest pages, basically what they'll see is that there is now a letter which has come out, published for the public to look at, from the company that apparently make this acoustic deterrent.
Right.
And they've basically, it looks like, if you read the letter, it looks like they've refuted everything that's been said about their device, claiming that it works.
Okay,
that wouldn't have come up at the meeting. Sorry.
No, you're fine. I am just on. Here we go. This is from David Seal. I am actually going to share this on screen, so bear with. This is the delights of doing stuff on the fly. But here we go. This is on the Stop EDF Proposal Facebook page. But he says, this is a press release today from the acoustic fish deterrent manufacturer. What it demonstrates is that they have mitigated all the issues that EDF keep recycling at their public engagements. There are no diver risks at all and no maintenance difficulties. EDF need to go back to Hinckley and take their... Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, this is the press release, and it says, acoustic fish deterrent at Hinckley Point C is shown to be the necessary and feasible answer. A solutions-focused, scientifically backed answer to the critical environmental situation at Hinckley Point C is today released by a coalition of scientists, engineers and innovators, showing that the acoustic fish deterrent, AFD, is both a necessary and feasible requirement for the builders of Hinckley Point C EDF Energy to apply. I'm not going to read it all because it is incredibly, it's quite long. But what I am going to do, for those of you watching tonight, we have shared it over to the page, to our Portishead. There we go, switching to Wild Portishead. Essentially, yes, you're right. They have absolutely kiboshed the argument that EDF were putting about that. That's right. Just stop that screen for a second. Yeah. So the link is on the page, folks. So essentially, what Hinckley want to do is create a new saltwater reserve on the edge of Kingston Seymour, in order to effectively kind of like try and funnel the fish, further down the estuary away from their pipes. In theory, I hope the fish have read the memo. Chris, what we have here is that that issue of turning a freshwater area into saltwater.
Yeah.
Now, people are going to say, but what about Steer marshes?
Well, we've already had that. Yeah. So I'll cut in and say, there was a petition going around, and I signed that petition, and it looks like I've been criticised for signing that petition from people who are saying that actually it'd be better for wildlife if they let the water in. I know that area very well, and if you look on, the best place to look is Google Earth. So if you look at the area that you outlined earlier, now go onto Google Earth and look down, you'll see that there is a lot of drainage ditches there. And so there's a lot of fresh water, as you've already said. There's also some really good old-fashioned small patchworks of fields, good hedgerows down there as well. So from a wildlife perspective, obviously without the luxury of an environmental impact study, I would say that off the top of my head, that yes, there could be a benefit from allowing if they're going to do a Steer Mark II, there could be, But what my question would automatically be, what do we lose in the process? And also, don't forget that some of those fields and those landowners down there, some of whom I've visited, are quite sympathetic to wildlife, and some of them have already got some pretty good species down there. And there's some wonderful, as I said, mixed hedgerows down there. There's also some good flower-rich meadows in places which would need to be looked at. There's also the complication of the fact that you've got the grasslands down there, you've got the fresh water, you've got the hedgerows, and you will have species such as bats. They will need to be looked at. So I think the reason why I signed the petition, let's get that out of the way straight away, was basically because I thought the information when I looked at it was very scant, and a way to make any company or whatever to give you more information is come out with a big protest. And that will normally get them coming out the door saying, well, actually, this is what we're going to do. So we're not at the point of, I believe, I stand to be corrected by any councillors that might be listening to this, but I believe we're not at the point of any planning permission yet.
No.
So the fact that I've signed a petition, I'm sorry if that's upset a few people, but I did it for the reason to get more information. I also did it for the landowners down there as well. Some of them are really good, really nice people, really good landowners, quite sympathetic towards wildlife. And so we're talking about people's livelihoods as well. So we're not just talking about wildlife, we're talking about people. And that's the other reason why. Now, if the farms are going to get mitigated so the farms can keep going, then that may be one thing they can tick off the list. But I think what they're doing, and I stand to be corrected, but I think what they're doing is they're just dropping in ideas like this, coming up with an outline map like you've got there, and saying basically this is what we would like to do. And then they're judging the reaction from the people and then moving on. Yes. And I presume that is exactly what's happened with Paul at Hams. I believe they're looking at another site in Gloucester as well.
Yep.
And I wonder, I'm going to throw this out there, which might annoy a few people. I wonder if they've looked at Portbury Wharf.
I wondered that. Unfortunately, it was a question I didn't get to ask on Monday, but yeah, that has crossed my mind as well. So
yeah. I think the other thing that was really interesting is the comment from our new North Somerset MP. The comments on there, you can read his letter on the Everything Else Clevedon Facebook page, or on the Kingston Seymour protest pages. Read it on there. It's been published. I think, wasn't it read out at the meeting?
It was read out, and it got a huge cheer and a round of applause.
So, yeah, and I think what he's basically saying in a nutshell, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, you obviously you heard it word for word, so to speak, but is basically, come on, EDF, what's going on here? Why don't you go back to the acoustics and go back to what you promised to do at the beginning?
Yep. I think, speaking personally, Chris, and speaking personally, I was there. My impression of what EDF were coming up with was, it just seemed very vague. It seemed very hopeful. And like I say, is people will say, but hang about while Portishead, aren't you being a little bit hypocritical? You are both big fans of Steart Marshes, which is a saltwater reserve outside of Bridgewater. I think the difference there, Chris, is that it was a different scenario. Steart was created to try to stop and mitigate what was already a massive flooding problem in the area. And and so the sea walls. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but the sea walls at Steer weren't doing a job, and so everything was pushed back, and a huge chunk of the coastline allowed to flood. But what that's done is it's stopped it from coming further inland, you see. So, yes, they have created a huge saltwater reserve there, but it was, if I read the documents right, it was just a refinement of what was already there. What we've got at Kingston Seymour is we've, the seawall has been put there to stop that salt water from flooding those fields and those homes and those livelihoods. So the barrier is already there. They're talking about taking that barrier down.
In doing so, they've got to build another one.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be at tremendous cost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's go back. Let's go back a stage, actually, because you know with the wildlife issue. I mean, again, I reiterate why I signed that petition was simply because the information was very scant.
Mm-hmm.
Come out of the door and let's have some proper plans that everybody can see. Let's have a full environmental impact study and of what you intend to do, and how then are you going to mitigate for some of the areas and the special species that you've already got there. So, I mean, if we go back in time far enough, then there wouldn't have been a seawall there in any case. So it's arguable that it was all salt marsh at one stage in any case. So what we did is as a species, we put a seawall in, and we were then able to farm behind it. So we've already created something that's really good, so to speak. And I just want more information. I want more detail. And even from everything you've said about the meeting so far, sounds like, I mean, Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, were they prepared for the meeting?
They were prepared for the meeting in terms of having a very slick presentation. But apologies to EDF here. It felt like it was all packaging and no substance. It was all very slick and lots of jargon, and very, very snappy, and the people from EDF were very professional, but to me it just didn't hold up really. And there were some very smart people in that audience who picked what EDF wanted to do. They picked it to pieces. So yeah, it was just, I wasn't convinced. It just, I tried to go in there with an open mind, because, like I say, we both know that there can be benefits of creating saltwater reserves, but this isn't one of them. I genuinely don't believe this is one of them. And yeah, the opposition to it was unanimous, and that is a highly motivated, but actually a highly informed populace around there who know that land. They know what the risks are, and so they're not. Then this isn't NIMBYism, Chris. These are informed people who live and work that land, and they've got to be listened to, essentially.
And it's going to be something which is clearly going to roll on. But I certainly am quite prepared to change my view with more information. And until we actually get that, At the moment, I am thinking that this ain't going to happen. That's what's going on in my head. I'm just thinking they're just putting this out there, and Paul at Hams is part of that as well, and that didn't work. So the people were against that. So we should wait and see. It's going to be a very interesting few months.
Yeah, I was going to say to people, if you want to follow all this online, is head over to the Say No to Saltmarsh or Stop EDF proposal to flood part of Kingston Seymour for Saltmarsh. There is a Facebook page out there. We've linked to it on our page. Head over there and have a read of the comments. And you know, it puts the thing about this, Chris, is when you actually hear the voices of the people who are living there and the people who, you know, potentially this is going to affect, it suddenly puts a human angle on this, you know, and it's yeah. So have a look at that, folks, and we will keep you updated on this, especially. As Chris said, be interesting to see if they try and make a move for Portbury Wharf, our favourite subject, Chris. Right, next, we are perhaps a little bit too early in the season for the holly and the ivy, but I think we're not too early for the ivy, are we, Chris?
So there's still plenty of ivy flower around. If you're going out looking at clumps at the moment, trying to get insects on there, a sunny day such as today, which was really warm, I recorded 19 degrees today.
I know.
So you know, do go and check the ivy, and if it looks like this with the little brown tops on, those are the flowers, and those will attract quite a lot of insects. The insect that's on here, on this particular one, is the ivy bee, which we have in Portishead. I've been around recording various colonies. I do it every year, and the number of colonies are increasing. So, yeah, well, I really do hope, Jonathan, that after probably since 2016, we're getting the message across not to get rid of ivy, and how important, for example, ivy is to a whole host of insects, let alone something like the ivy bee, which only emerges during September and it's all over and done with by November. So it's adapted to only come out during that time. That's it. Lays its eggs, then you know you're waiting another 10 months or 9 months for it to come back out again. But if you're a beekeeper, of course, you will know full well that for your bees to be happy at this time of the year with so many of the other flowers gone, ivy is absolutely essential. And a beekeeper told me the other day that the honey tastes very special during the ivy season. I'd not heard that before, so I was quite fascinated by that, how that actually works. But there we go. So yeah, it's really important. If you've got ivy in your garden, let us know. If you're seeing species like the ivy bee, take a picture of them on your smartphone. This is what you're looking at is a smartphone picture. That's an ivy bee taken with my iPhone 12 Pro Max. So yeah, what's the latest one? Is it 18 or 19 now? I don't know.
Oh goodness me! I've got to upgrade at some stage. I'm dreading.
Yeah, no, I'm sticking with mine. The camera on it's just absolutely superb. I mean, look at this picture. So yeah, you can record with your phone, with your smartphone. Send it through to us. Have you got details of where they should send it to?
They can post it to our our Facebook page. Post it to our Facebook page, or message us, or they can email us at wildportishead at gmail.com. I'll just see if we had a banner up for that. No, we haven't. I'll create one right now. But yeah, but the easiest way is just to post something onto our Facebook wall. Sorry, I'm just typing badly here. wildportishead@gmail.com. There we go. Yeah, so you can email us. There we go. wildportishead@gmail.com. And yeah, send us your pictures through. Because we would like to include more of your pictures. In fact, we do have a public page as well, Chris. So people can share stuff there as well. So right, shall we? We're at the halfway point of the show. No, you were just talking about taking iPhone pictures. This is an iPhone picture from my now very old and decrepit iPhone 11, which I've had for 4 years. But this is our next topic. Dun,
Nice.
dun, dun. It is, of course, Chris, a false widow, isn't it?
Yep. Now, why are we doing a story on the false widow?
I don't know, Chris. Why are we doing a story on the false widow?
Is it something to do with North Somerset Times?
What have they been up to? Is it
Oh, don't you
scarce
know?
story?
I thought you put this in. No, they're just basically warning. I think they put a picture in of a spider, which somebody says is not the false widow, and basically warning everybody about false widows. Now, the false widow, of course, it can bite, and you could get a reaction from it. But we have them in the house here. I'm looking around to see if I can find one. And I've handled them, put them in my hand, put them in the children's hands, and they never do anything. But what they are is super efficient. I mean, if you've got insects in your house that you don't want, my goodness, these things are fast. They're not like your ordinary house spider, which waits until something lands in its web. These things go on the chase, and they are very, very efficient indeed. So again, we're probably at a low time in terms of the amount of news that the press can put out at the moment. So they turn to things like normally in August, you see, when Parliament is not in session, they turn to baby gulls and they turn to gull attacks. So at this time of the year, it tends to be these spiders, and I mean, yeah, it's for me, it's a non-starter. For some people, it might be a problem, but this is a very beneficial. Spider for us as a species. Does an awfully brilliant job at clearing up some of the things that we actually don't want around. So, have you got another picture there?
I do another picture. That is, there we go.
Like that's a really interesting spider. So yeah, I did a survey of Segestria florentina. So this is Segestrius florentina after I made a Radio 4 program millions of years ago on them. And I did a survey around Portishead because I'm not sure whether this is still classified as not native, but it was basically came about being in the country because of small fruit boats coming up from the Mediterranean. And wherever they docked, they seem to get a population of Segestrius florentina, also known by its English name as the tube web spider. And lovely story of them, how they would have got here. So the spiderlings themselves would have attached themselves to the fruit. And once the boat had docked, what would happen is that they if the day has to be absolutely right, you have to have high pressure with a little bit of moisture in the air, but a nice sunny warm morning. And that basically what they'll do is send out a thread, and the thread lets them take off, and then they'll literally float along in the air with their web out in front of them, and then land around the docks. And what they'll do then is crawl into the first hole that you can find. So you're looking at here a half-grown Segestrius florentina, and they can be quite big. It's very difficult. Do you want to show a picture of me, and I'll show you how big they can be? Go on. Show a picture of me. Then go back to the spider. Show a picture of me. Go.
Yep.
So they can be about. Oh, they can be about the. No. They're probably about that big. About that big when they're full size. Right. Go back to the spider again.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they'll look for holes in normally in walls around the docks. So a little bit of crumbly wall, and in they'll go, and they'll literally back down the hole until it stops. So what you're looking at here is what looks like a spider with 2, 4, 6 legs. Now the other 2 that are missing are at the back of it, and they are pressed right up against the wall behind them. And what it does is it throws out threads. So it throws out a web in front of it, which clings to the wall. Now, anything which walks across there and triggers it will mean that that thing will dash out at lightning speed, propelled by its 2 back legs. And can you see the fangs?
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah, they're beautiful iridescent fangs on the Segestrius florentina. And basically, it'll throw itself out and put those fangs straight into whatever is there. Now, I'll tell you a story. So it's not venomous. It's not venomous, but when we made the Radio 4 program, we went down to Exeter. Exeter, as you know, is another bit like Portishead. It's a dock town, now a city, obviously.
Yeah.
And obviously the fruit boats had been there. And where we actually found the spiders was around the old cathedral, which is quite close to the dock. And we basically were partway through the program, and we met this stonemason, and we were told to go and interview him, which I did. And he'd actually been bitten by one. Now, he had hair right down to halfway down his back. And he looked a little bit like Dave Gilmour in about 1972.
Yeah.
And so he said what happened was, and he said it was his fault, not the spider's fault. He was doing some stonemasonry work, and one of his, or a few of his hairs triggered the web, and this thing came out and bit him straight on the cheek. So the obvious question to him then was, obviously, did he suffer any side effects? He said no, but he said the pain lasts about 6 hours. Well, I think he said 6 hours and 15 minutes, something like that. But the point is that you don't. Again, this when I did my survey around Portishead, you basically, there's a trail of Segestrius florentinas that go from. I started off at my house, so the picture that you saw was one in my house, and I basically did a walk which took me up from Hollis Avenue, and then along Underwood Road, along Wetlands Lane. I found some in the old barn building that's there, and then I found quite a few of them along the Garston's footpath, the one with the tank on it. So I found quite a few there, and then they increased in number all the way until the dock. Now, obviously, the dock's changed. So a lot of the old buildings that were there are gone. But wherever there was a remnant of an old building, or there was a wall that had some holes starting to appear in it, there was Segestrius florentina. It was there. And so the moral of the story is respect them. And again, a lot of insects that you don't like are crawling across those walls trying to get into your house. And Segestrius florentina does not want to live in your house. It wants to live on the outside of your house. It wants to live on the wall. And there it will stop some of these things from getting in. In terms of how powerful they are, believe it or not, they're capable of taking European hornets.
Wow.
So one to look out for. And I do a Segestrius florentina walk, if anybody's interested.
I am.
Spider watching at night.
Yep. Oh, sign me up for that, Chris. I'm happy to do that. I'm just gonna say actually we're talking about the false widow. I've got one that lives on my windowsill in the kitchen. It's been there for probably about 18 months now. I'm always very careful that when I have to kind of like give the windowsill a clean down, usually just to brush away the carapaces of all the things that they've eaten, which is quite quite an astonishing kind of collection, really. But the false widow will scuttle off. We'll have a bit of a tidy up, and then they'll be back. But yes, what that one on my windowsill is eating is quite amazing. And also, we've got to qualify the whole thing about this hysteria about false widow spider bites and everything. Any spider bite can pretty much give an adverse reaction in the wrong kind of person. And if you are somebody who is sensitive to insect bites, bee stings, anything like that, it's going to generate a negative reaction. And you've really got to go some to irritate a false widow, because the number of times I've accidentally disturbed the one on my kitchen window, and it's done is run away.
Yep.
So yeah, people can have negative reactions to Snickers bars. So let's have a bit of perspective here. Let's not start turning it into the latest bogeyman, and let's have people terrified of spiders. Full stop. Nope, they are fabulous creatures. They do a hell of a job for us as well. That's the main thing. We've had a viewer comment, Chris. They know what the MBE is, but what's the CDM?
Cadbury's Dairy Milk.
Really? Now go on. What's the CDM?
Cadbury's Dairy Milk.
I thought it was civil defence something or other.
No, Cadbury's Dairy Milk.
You're being silly, aren't you? Right. Next news story is we're getting Chris Packham on next time. The next news story is actually we might try and see if we can get Martin Hughes Games on, because he lives just down the road, relatively speaking. But anyway, next news story, Chris, hedgehogs. We're coming up to that season now, where part of the season where they're all going to be hibernating, aren't they?
Yes, well, they're going to be looking for cover, and of
Yep.
course, this is we're moving into the time when people will be tidying up their gardens, and they're going to be looking for shelter. We're also moving into bonfire time. So if you've got a bonfire, or you're going to light a bonfire, particularly around November the 5th, well, at any time, always check to make sure that you haven't got anything living underneath. So it can be hedgehog, but you might also have slow worms there. So they might be dormant underneath there, and just give it a check first. It doesn't take long to do. I know a lot of people we don't have bonfires like we used to, do we? So yeah, the other thing, of course, is with the tidying up, if there's patches of your garden, you can think about leaving the leaves. This is very important indeed, because given if we get harsh conditions, and what I mean by harsh conditions could be really cold or really, really wet, then the leaves can be essential, because, of course, that's where a lot of invertebrates will be either dormant or living in a kind of microclimate underneath the leaves. And that's where birds, especially during the winter period, will congregate to turn the leaves over. And that can be a lifesaver for things like thrushes, blackbirds, etc., etc. So if there's any way you can leave the leaves, the benefits for wildlife are absolutely tremendous. And the benefits for you may be a bit messy at first, but if we don't have leaf litter, which is left to go to mulch, of course, in the end, I know it takes a while, but that's potentially soil for another day.
I've got a neighbour's tree. I think it's an Acer. Absolutely beautiful red leaves coming down at the moment. Peppers my lower lawn down by the apple trees. Looks absolutely glorious. I've just got this carpet of red, and it's not even my tree, but it does also cover the borders with all these red leaves down there, and there's nothing really growing in those borders at this time of the year. So I leave it, if you pardon the pun, I just let it all be.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll try and take some photographs and pop them on the Facebook page for discussion, because it's it looks fabulous, but it's doing a job for wildlife as well. And
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
that's the other thing.
Sorry, let's make it absolutely clear, because one of the things somebody said to me is that it sounds like we're telling people what to do. We're not. We've never done that. So what we're doing is asking you if you can. And we're going through a time of tremendous decline of nature in our country. It's often said the UK is one of the most nature depleted countries across the Northern Hemisphere. So anything you can do to help in your own garden, but it's up to you. We're not telling you what to do. We're just giving you ideas. And it's up to you if you do it. And if you do it and you want to talk to us about it, please do.
Yeah.
Please
well,
send us pictures.
Viewer Sam says, big bonfire being built tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on what's under it. Absolutely fabulous. Well done, Sam. That's exactly what we are advocating at the moment. Chris, some excitement last Friday, because I went to visit my friend Faye, who I've not seen for a couple of months, and she lives in Claverham. And as we were pulling into her drive, we both saw a bird fly up in front of us, and we both looked at each other and went, "Oh, did you see that jay?" Because we both thought it was a jay, because we just saw this coloured barbed wing. Anyway, park up, and I see this bird by the hedgerow, and I suddenly think to myself, that's not a jay. And I got a funny idea what this is. And I'm desperately trying to get the camera out of my bag on the back seat to get a photograph of it. Anyway, I did. I managed to get about a dozen snaps before it flew away. Look
Beautiful.
at that. That is a very rare visitor to our shores. It is a hoopoe. And from what I gather, I think it's around 100 transit the UK every year.
Yep.
Mostly along the southern end of the United Kingdom. And they do tend to do it in kind of like patches. So I think it's kind of April through to June, and then it's August through to October. But to see a hoopoe was quite a thing, I can tell you, Chris. I really couldn't believe my eyes. I was so desperate to get home and get the pictures, because it was quite a distance away. So this is my 300mm Nikon lens working to its max here. But I couldn't wait to get home just to make sure I could download the pics. And I had proof absolute that I had seen this bird. But oh my goodness me, they do. The thing is that you can see why people talk about that link between dinosaurs and birds, because that does look like a Parasaurolophus. Well, it does, doesn't it? It's got that kind of But yes, so a very rare visitor to our shores. I still haven't seen a kingfisher, but I have seen a hoopoe. I was shall we say, for the rest of the day, I was grinning like a Cheshire cat because that was really quite something special. So,
Great
and
bird. I've seen them in France. I've seen them on their breeding areas in France. And I'm just wondering there, I'm thinking as you're talking, I wonder if this is a bird that we're going to see more and more of, particularly if the climate warms up. But obviously, we need food on the back of that. It needs to eat. So some of the things that are being advocated at the moment, like desperately trying to increase the invertebrate populations from what seems to be their all-time low, would be essential if this bird came in and started breeding. It would be absolutely essential that they have sufficient food here. But we are seeing a general movement north of species that, for example, would have been in mid or southern France 20, 25 years ago. I mean, you only have to go down the Somerset levels, and you're looking at some species down there which I'd have had to have gone down to see. I'd have had to have seen in the Camargue. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if they don't start breeding. Is what I'm trying to say in English.
No, that would be that would be absolutely fabulous. And like I say, just the pure chance of just being in the right place at the right time, and also whenever I go anywhere, I always take my DSLR with me, always with the 300mm lens on it, because you never know what you're going to see. I think we are coming towards the end of tonight's show, Chris.
Don't forget the plug. Don't forget the plug.
I will do the plug. Don't you worry. Any other business, Chris?
No. At some stage, I would say probably within the next month, we need to have a gathering, a get together.
Yep.
We are. I've gathered a lot of information on Swift projects, and we need to have a meeting. So that actually means we get some people together.
Yep.
Now, we have had correspondence from people who are keen to take part in the Swift project, and we need to move that on and move it forward. We also need to talk to Portishead Town Council, and we would like to get their backing for it. Because that would be a major boost. So if there's any town councillors out there listening to this, stand by, because we're going to be contacting you. And I think generally, we're getting a lot of contact from people about Wild Portishead, about what we're doing, etc. And now I think it's time that we had a meeting, we had a sit down, and we organised some structure, because you and I, mate, are running out of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Chris, is there a book coming out soon that you may have written a chapter on?
Oh yes, October the 31st, especially for Halloween. The Great Misconceptions of Rewilding, Myths and Misunderstandings. So it's due out October the 31st. I'm gobsmacked by the amount of people who I meet who say it's on pre-order, it's on pre-order. So that's great. Thank you very much. It's quite high in the Amazon chart at the moment for pre-order books. So thank you. That's brilliant. What we'll try and do is get Whittles to give us a few copies, which we can have a gathering somewhere. We were going to try and have a gathering at a certain bookshop in the high street, but they weren't very interested. But the library are very interested in having a gathering. So when the book is launched, we'll arrange that with the library. I'm also appearing, you're going to have to remind me of the date on this. I'm appearing at the Somerset Hall, doing a talk about wildlife in Portishead and how you can help it. When's that, Jonathan? Come on, help me out. I can't see my calendar because it's on my phone and I'm using my phone.
This is so well organized. I'm so glad you've dropped that one in tonight. It is bear with. That's one of my favorite phrases I use on my other show.
It's actually on our Facebook page.
It is on our Facebook page. I'm just going to our Facebook page. This is what we need. Anybody out there who's good at organizing, this is what we need. Somebody who actually help out. Here we go. Right, Chris. No, that's not you. That's my mate Guy. Scrolls down, scrolls down, scrolls down. Here we go. That's you doing no, that was you doing the owl talk. Oh, for goodness sake, I cannot find. We'll put something up afterwards.
It's in November, in any case.
Yes, yeah, I know. So well organised tonight.
Yep.
Absolutely.
But I'll talk about the book there as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Obviously, the main emphasis of that is wildlife in Portishead and what we can all do to help.
Yeah. I'm just checking. Here we go. Right.
Sustainable Day.
I found it. Goodness me. Right. Let's switch over to. I'm so glad we had the screen off for a second there. As I'm banging my head against the wall. Here we go, Chris. Portishead Town Council. We got there in the end. Portishead Town Council. Chris Sperring, MBE. How to help Portishead's wildlife. Saturday, the 2nd of November, 2024, 12:45 to 1:30 p.m. Join renowned wildlife expert Chris Sperring, MBE, for an inspiring talk on how we can all help protect Portishead's amazing wildlife. Learn practical tips to support local species and make a positive impact on nature. Don't miss this opportunity to connect with nature and take action. So there we go. That is on our Facebook page. And in fact, I'm just going to see, I can't pin it to the top, but I'm sure we can pin our repost to the top of the page. It's pinned to the top of the page. So there we go. Looking forward to that, Chris, because I should be coming down to support. So and then we can report back on the show. We've got some viewer comments tonight. Viewer Laura says more chocolate-related acronyms appended in future episodes, please. Special prize for viewers who can decode it. And Rosy Red Squirrel Nut says 12:45. Yeah, Rosy Red Squirrel Nut 12:45 to 1:30. I haven't got time to do this at the moment because I've got some badger. I've got some badger pics from the other night in my garden. I set the trail cam up. There we go. So the badgers are around. Hedgehogs have pretty much disappeared from the garden now because they are getting ready to shut down for the winter. But I've got the badger still doing the rounds, so that's good to see. Also, the juvenile robins and the parent, which we'll talk about on the next show, because that's been some very interesting behaviour that I've noticed on the mealworm feeders of the adult essentially chasing away its offspring. So
time to go. Yep.
Time to go. Right, folks, that's a wrap for tonight. Big thank you to Chris for joining us, and thank you to everybody who's tuned in. Keep an eye on the Facebook page. Don't forget you can contribute to our public page as well. Send in your pics, keep your posts coming, and hopefully we'll see you in a few weeks' time. So until then, stay safe, stay out of trouble, and we'll see you very, very soon. Bye for now.